Dozvolite mi najpre da vas u duhu tradicije, kako to običaj nalažu, ispred Internacionalne policijske asocijacije Srbije pozdravim, poželim dobrodošlicu i izrazim zahvalnost svima vama koji ste u ovakvom broju došli da učestvujete u ovom posebnom događaju. Kao što svi znate, IPA Srbija se priključila velikoj međunarodnoj inicijativi, podizanju svesti o prevarama u poslovanju. Jedan od ciljeva IPA je svakako razmena znanja i iskustva između njenih članova i eksperata iz različitih oblasti, kao i podizanje ugleda i jačanja pozicije naše policije i države u svetu. Pre svega, pranje novca i poslovne prevare su sve češća pojava, a kao što svi znamo, privreda je nosilac svih aktivnosti u zemlji i mnogo toga zavisi od uređenosti privrede. Kao profesionalcu koji je posvetio život zakonu, ali i meni lično kao čoveku, ova situacija je teško prihvatljiva i želim da učinim nešto da se to promeni. Ali mi ne smemo da okrećemo leđa tome i leđa istini. Moramo da se suočimo sa njima. Kao što je Vojvoda Mišić lepo rekao, ko sme, taj i može, ko ne zna za strah, taj ide napred. Ujedno, Internacionalna policijska asocijacija na ovaj način želi da da svoj doprinos aktivnostima naše vlade i našim ministarstvima, upravo kroz organizovanje ovog skupa, kroz podizanje svesti učesnika u poslovanju od rizika pranja novca. Na kraju želim da završim rečenicom koja glasi: skupiti se zajedno znači početak, raditi zajedno znači napredak, a ostati zajedno znači uspeh. Hvala.
My name is Günter Bechtloff. I'm Austrian police attaché in Belgrade, assigned for this duty a little bit more than 4 years. And I thank especially the organizers of the conference for the invitation for us. I want to give you a very brief overview about the situation in Austria, which will be changed by the 1st of next year, so 1st of January 2019. But it's, I must correct a little bit, it's not amendments to our law, it's amendments to the administrative structure for the police, how to fight money laundering. And the major reason is, like the previous speaker mentioned, FATF is listing the countries, and I must admit Austria is also currently grey listed. So we are not a white sheep in the family to fight money laundering. In the moment we are grey listed, and this has particular to do with the last evaluation of the FATF to Austria, where they were not very happy with our structures, how to fight money laundering. So I will give you a small overview how the current situation is. It is like this, that in Austria there exists the Federal Police Service, which covers the whole state area. And the main topics regarding to criminal police are all in the Criminal Intelligence Service included. This is based in Vienna. I want not to bother you too much with the structures, but basically there exist 7 departments in this Criminal Intelligence Service, and the Department 7, what you can see on this slide, is focusing on the fight against economic crime in general, and the Office 7-2 is related to the fight against money laundering. So it's a structure inside the Economic Crime Department. Also included currently is the Asset Recovery Office and the Money Laundering Office in this structure. In the future is planned to open a new office in this structure for the fight against economic crime, and this is based on the latest recommendation of the FATF, because they were strongly insisting to divide the investigation and the intelligence gathering in the field of money laundering. It has also to do that, as you know, FIUs have in a certain way the right to surround the bank security law in the way that they can check at a certain level and in a certain moment certain transaction on bank accounts, and even block them till the decision of a public prosecutor office is available to this case. And in that regard, it was recommended to Austria to change this in the future, and therefore we will have a third office. The analysis of the future FIU should basically focus also on the intelligence gathering block should be stronger, which means general new phenomena how to analyze, particularly financial movement of financial resources through Austria, from Austria, or coming back to Austria, needs to be stronger. That's in particular the biggest recommendation which we have received, and we hope if we fulfill it that we will in the next review have this again be a white sheep in the group of families to fight money laundering. What else is maybe important to say? The analytical database is not as FATF would like to have seen it. It should be more based on proper analysis, not only to collect the data from the financial institution which are obliged to inform us about any suspicious transaction. That's in fact the basic. So you see, not only Serbia is facing some problems in this field, as I know. Our presentation is given to the organizers, and you can read it in details. I want not to bother you now what are exactly the new points of the structure. I think handouts will be made, and or it will be available to you electronically in Serbian language. I want to speak a little bit about the practical situation. To be very frank, I'm now more than 4 years here police officer, and we have very limited cases in the field of money laundering. I must admit this counts for both countries, for Austria and Serbia. Even so, we have Serbian, do not take me here wrong, but it's a fact, and 10,000 prisoners which are currently in Austria in detention, around 600 are coming from Serbia or Serbian nationals. And that means, for sure, as committed crimes, where are the proceeds from these crimes? Mostly they are coming back to Serbia. But in that regard, there are not a lot of investigation ongoing. Mainly, our major focus in Austria currently is the fight against narcotic trafficking. It's a big success, together again with Serbian police and justice authorities, I must admit. So only in one operation, the biggest one, it's named Street Runner. Since July 2017, there were 300 arrests in Austria, mainly Serbian nationals, far over 200. But once again, I do not see that money laundering cases are opened nor in Austria nor here. So I think in the practical view, there has a lot more to be done to compete and to combat in this area. That's so far my short statement to the current situation. And if you have any question, you may address, please.
Ja sam dr. Jelena Slović, predsjednik IPE, profesor dr. Nebojša Pantelić je pred nas postavio jedan veliki izazov koji, evo, mi nismo znali da odgovorimo na njega, pa smo upravo pozvali sve vas kao stručnjake iz oblasti, pre svega, istrage, odnosno policijskih organa, zatim revizije, interne, eksterne revizije, poreskog konsaltinga i ostalih kolega koje su, i posebno CFI-a, moram da zaista istaknem, pošto ovo je zapravo sve deo te velike međunarodne manifestacije International Fraud Awareness Week, koja je pokrenula ACFI, asocijacije iz Amerike. Zaista ljudi koji su pozvani da govore na temu naše diskusije, a to je prevencija ili detekcija pranja novca i prevarnih radnji u poslovanju. Pre svega je to gospodin državni tužilac Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Amit Kabravala. Pored njega je advokat gospodin Vladimir Hrle, član Evropske advokatske komore, znači i savjetnik vrlo bitnih institucija, član je odbora za korupciju, tako. Pored njega je gospodin Boško Videković, sekretar komore ovlašćenih revizora. Pored njega je profesor dr. Zoran Vasić iz Ministarstva finansija, koji će nam pričati o jednoj jako zanimljivoj temi koja sve nas ponekad tišti, a to su porezi i poreski prekršaji. Znači, nakon profesora Vasića nastavit će profesor dr. Darko Trifunović, koji će nam dati jako interesantne uvide vezane za pranje novca u poslovanju, jer to je nekako uvek neka tema koja sve u poslovanju pomalo žulja. Potom je jako zanimljiva priča gospođe Marije Kušić-Radovanović iz Udruženja banaka, koja se više od decenije bavi praćenjem, istraživanjem prevara i prevarnih radnji u bankarstvu i na čelu je i odbora protiv prevara ili tog antifraud odbora u Udruženju banaka. I znači, na kraju, ali svakako možda čak i najzanimljiviji sagovornik će biti profesor dr. Dragan Milić, specijalni savjetnik ministra poljoprivrede i gospodin koga je i Ministarstvo pravde imenovalo da upravlja oduzetom imovinom.
And Mr. President, thank you for your invitation and for your inspirational words. And I want to thank also the members of our esteemed panel and guests, students in particular. Let me just start off by saying the short answer to your question is that we did something that Serbia is currently doing in the face of the Financial Action Task Force gray listing, which is, number one, to make a high-level commitment to fighting corporate crime, and in your case, fighting money laundering. That commitment is so important because it changes a culture. Picture yourself working at Enron in, who knows, the shipping department, major international energy company, employed 30,000 people, and overnight you're told that your entire life savings has evaporated and you are no longer employed. And this is all due to the corporate mismanagement and fraud committed by the executives of your company that you really have never even met. This happened to millions of people who had invested in companies like Enron and WorldCom. Their life savings evaporated. 70-year-old people who are ready to retire to Florida, now faced with massive debts and having to go back to work. It's very painful. And we all know people who are affected we all knew people who are affected by these financial frauds. So the government made a high-level commitment. And what they did was they, at the strenuous objection of the business community, they passed what was called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. The long name of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act is the Public Company Accounting Reform and Investor Protection Act. I'll say it again, Public Company Accounting Reform and Investor Protection Act. What did that law do? There were 5 main changes, really, that law, which was passed in 2002, did. I'm going to focus on just a couple of the changes. Number 1, who was at fault in that case? Really, it was the corporate executives. What happened in the Enron case? In the Enron case, the company had essentially misused and misdirected funds. They had overstated their revenues. They had understated their expenses, and that they had overstated the value of their corporate assets. So basically, the company wasn't doing as well as was reflected on their tax filings, right? And when members of the public invest in companies that are traded on the stock exchange, they look to financial advice. And the investments that you make, the decisions that you make, they're only as good as the information that you have. And if the information that you have is faulty, then your investments and in turn your decisions are going to be failures. So that's what happened. All these higher up people had colluded with their accountants to what we call cook the books. that is, falsify business records. So the first thing that the Sarbanes-Oxley Act did was to mandate that all corporate executives, whether it's a chief operating executive officer, CEO, or a chief financial officer, personally must certify the financial records of a company. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a corporate executive. Before the SOX law was passed, many of these corporate executives would say, well, I can't sign that. I'm not a financial expert. I don't know what this says. How can you ask me to sign something that I don't understand? Naturally, this law said, we don't care. Educate yourself. Hire people. Learn about the finances to a point where you're satisfied signing them. I'm a prosecutor back in New York City. I love when corporate executives lie on paper because it is direct evidence of their knowledge or their criminal intent. So it made it easier for prosecutors to go after the bigger fish in the company. The other couple of things that it did was that it mandated structures so that accountants would be insulated from pressure. Think about this. You work in an accounting firm, and the accounting firm is in the business of making money. They don't give away their services for free. And Enron, a company with 30,000 employees, is your client. That's a lot of money for you. That means promotions, that means incentive pay, that means bonuses. You have a financial interest in making sure that your client, Enron, looks good. So you also have an interest in making sure you have a financial interest in incentivizing fraud. If there's something wrong at the company, you have an interest in downplaying that or deceiving the public. So what did Sarbanes-Oxley do? It made it so that if you are doing an accounting of a public company, that the lead auditor must change every 5 years. So you can't just have the same guy that you go to every single time. I don't want to make you the bad guy. But also that it needs to be double checked by another auditor. And finally, another big change that was made was the creation of what's called the, let me find the actual name of it. Sorry. Why am I drawing a blank on the name? Well, it created a accounting board. PCAOB, sorry. But it's only important if you know what it means. Well, what did the PCAOB do? The PCAOB essentially mandated that if you are doing an accounting of a public company, that you must use its standards. So first you must register with the public, with this independent non-governmental board. The independent non-governmental board is overseen by our Securities and Exchange Commission. So it's non-governmental, but it's supervised by the government. It creates a registration requirement. So if you're an accountant and you're going to work on any kind of accounting for a public company, you must register so they know who you are. You must be certified, you must be trained. Second, it sets standards, right? So it says what you must do in order to do an appropriate audit. Of course, these are all GAAP principles, generally accepted accounting principles, but they're essentially testing you and making sure that you use them. Third, it monitors. So it actually goes into the finances of public companies and it spot checks to make sure you're doing right, the correct work. And fourth, it has disciplinary oversight. So if for any reason you've done something wrong, you're going to get disciplined by that board itself, which is essentially like a professional licensing board. It also has very strong cooperation with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and also the Department of Justice. So if they do discover some fraud, the Department of Justice and the FBI and other law enforcement agencies are a phone call away. So it makes people behave, essentially. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, but just please allow me to ask you one more question related to the SOX law. What were the effects? Were there any effects, and is it still in force in the United States?
Yes, very much so. So as I mentioned earlier, the corporate sector really did not like this law. Think about it. You were making a lot of money. Now you have all these new accounting protocols. Accountants are not free. You have a big company. This is going to cost a lot of money. But the long-term effect, and this is based on surveys, independent surveys done of our publicly traded companies. By the way, we have obviously very large stock exchanges. Our New York Stock Exchange, I think, has a market capitalization of $22 trillion. So it's a big stock exchange. And they did an anonymous survey of the New York Stock Exchange members and the NASDAQ, which is the second largest stock exchange in the world, also based in New York. And the vast majority of the surveyed companies believe that this increased investor confidence. Think about this. If you're an investor and you have $100 to invest, and you don't want to put it in a bank account because people tell you you should play the stock market. You should invest your money in the stock market, which is a smart idea. But if there are all these accounting scandals, why would you risk losing all your money by putting it into a company that could ultimately be perpetrating a fraud with your investment? You stand to lose your life savings. You stand to lose your shirt. These mechanisms, over time, and they've been implemented since 2002, have increased confidence in the stock market, have increased investor confidence, and have actually rooted out fraud. If you look at, and I can go into another provision, which is another law called the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is kind of like a brother law. These two laws, they're essentially anti-corruption and anti-bribery laws. They have captured a lot of wrongful conduct, not only in the United States, but overseas, companies that invest in the United States stock market. So they have been extremely positive developments, and also there's two other major kind of things. I mentioned that the SOX law applies to public companies. Well, guess what? Even if you're a private company, a big private company, and you want to generate investment, you want to have appropriate business practices, you want banks to lend you money, those banks and other businesses that lend you money, they're going to require that you comply with the Sarbanes-Oxley law. They're going to require that you have the same mechanisms in place that would apply to publicly traded companies, because this is a standard-setting law. And then the sort of global impact has been, there have been a lot of Western European countries and other countries around the world that have adopted similar versions of this law. You can guess the countries: UK, Netherlands, Germany, New Zealand, and even India, which has a fairly large stock exchange, have adopted this law. So it's not only been a standard setting for the United States and for smaller companies in the United States, but because of the global trend that is globalization, where an investor in Serbia may invest in a company in Mexico, or a Mexican company may invest in an Uzbeki company. These global standards of accounting are almost like gold standards, and they have come to be required by banks who are going to lend money to companies that want to make investments.
So definitely we could say there is a strong positive effect.
I would say so, yes.
In improvement.
Yes.
And it's good to know. And as you know, one more issue here is very interesting for all of us, and that is our main topic, and that is the money laundering. And we all here have our questions and disputes. Could you tell us something about the money laundering in the United States and the situation and the regulations? And how did you solve this situation or try to prevent the money laundering?
Well, I don't think we've solved the situation. We probably have a lot of money laundering going on, as you all know. So let me just start off by saying, what's money laundering? I think we all have an understanding, but essentially it's converting or using criminally derived assets or money to make them look lawful, or to lawfully use the money. Money laundering is nothing new. It's been going on since there were businesses. Merchants would launder their money, that is, hide it from tax collectors and make it look like it wasn't generated revenue for tax collectors. Pirates, when they were on the high seas, would launder money, launder their booty to be able to spend it. In the United States, money laundering didn't actually become a law until 1986. So think about that. I mean, we talk about money laundering like it's been around for a long time. Before, we used to prosecute money laundering essentially as tax evasion. That is, you made money from some corrupt or illegal activity and you didn't declare it. Look at Al Capone, famous mobster in the United States, made his money from illegal gambling, prostitution, racketeering activities, extortion. How did he get caught? He got prosecuted for tax evasion. He never reported the income from prostitution, drug dealing, extortion, etc. So what did we do in the United States in 1986? Number one, we passed a very expansive criminal law that criminalizes money laundering. That law is very similar to the one that Serbia has that combats money laundering. It basically makes it a crime to do two things essentially. Use illegal money in any financial transaction, right? So you can't hide the money in some way, you can't invest the money in further illegal conduct, you can't make it look different. And then two, spending money laundering. You can't spend the money. If you spend it, in the United States the threshold is you can't spend over $10,000. So you can go and buy a coffee with your illegal money and that's not a crime. But if you spend it more than $10,000, that's a crime. It's called spending money laundering. But essentially it is the same law as Serbia has. We also did another thing, which was we initiated what is called the Bank Secrecy Act. The name is really, it's an anti-money laundering law. And what that did was that compels, and Serbia recently passed legislation that's almost identical to the Bank Secrecy Act. That makes all obligated financial institutions like banks, casinos, money exchangers, those kinds of institutions, and then also certain non-financial business professionals, like real estate, notaries, etc. you have here. You actually have lawyers, we don't. Lawyers in the United States are never going to go for that. And what do they have to do? They have to know their customer. They have to exercise reasonable due diligence to know where their customers' monies are coming from. So when you sign up for a bank account in the United States, you have to give all your personal information, you have to give them your national ID number, you have to give them your occupation, and if there's any question that the bank has that you're not a real person, they have the legal requirement to find out more. So they'll pick up the phone, they'll ask you to come in, they'll ask you to verify your income in some way, knowing your customer. That is so important. You take the HSBC bank case from 2012. I don't know if you remember that. HSBC Bank got fined by my office in New York, $2 billion for failing to have a compliance mechanism to check where money was coming from. And that money, of course, was coming from narco trafficking through Mexico. and they had failed to do anything to verify. Another thing that we have is very practical, and I'll just finish on this point, which is it's one thing to have a policy, but it's another thing to do what Serbia is doing, which is making a high-level commitment to anti-money laundering. And we tried to do that. So we did really practical things like, so as you all may know, if you have any kind of suspicious activity, that you come into the bank down the street and you bring in a duffel bag full of 15,000 euros and you deposit that, chances are someone behind the counter is going to tell their manager that you did that. And now it is going to be the manager's obligation to write a report, what is called a suspicious transaction report. And they're going to say, on this day, Amit Kabirwala walked into the bank with 15,000 euros in cash, and he can't explain where he got it from. That report technically has to go to your Administration for the Prevention of Money Laundering, right? And it does. So what did we do? We took it a step further. Our financial intelligence unit coordinates with all the law enforcement agencies, and we have what's called a Suspicious Activity Report Task Force. Every office of the prosecution office of the Department of Justice has one, and it's a multi-agency effort. Pretty much everyone has to review suspicious transaction reports, and we meet once a month and we talk about them. And when we find suspicious cases that could be criminal cases, we refer those out and we give them to investigators to look into. So that's a really practical way of how we combat money laundering, and I would urge Serbia to have something similar that is a prosecutorial-led suspicious transaction report task force, where you go through and you read the material that the Administration for the Prevention of Money Laundering gives you, and you say, hey, this guy walked into a bank with 15,000 euros, he can't explain it, let's run a criminal history check on him. Because as law enforcement, we have that power. And then you find out that he was convicted for drug trafficking or prostitution or cigarette smuggling, and then you go from there. But it's a really practical way that prosecutors and law enforcement can work together to make sure that that high-level commitment to fight money laundering is implemented properly.
Thank you for that recommendation. Here are many practitioners, and starting from me, let us try to give at least to give a proposal in order just to improve. Maybe it will work or not, but let us think about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, just one more question. I just have to ask you. Could you give us maybe a few tips to how to prevent money laundering and financial frauds? Because you have, not you personally, but great experience. So please give us here, I guess all professionals here would like to hear maybe a few tips, what we could do to make it better.
So there's a few things. Number one would be a financial suspicious transaction report task force that a prosecutor could lead with the help of police investigators. That's a really practical thing that you can do, and it doesn't require new legislation. It just requires some people who can read, who can think, getting together in a room maybe once a month, once every couple of months, and really talking about cases. Another thing is harnessing the knowledge that's within the private industry. So what do I mean by that? Banks here, if they're part of the international banking community, they are already doing this. They're already reviewing matters for currency transaction reporting requirements, suspicious activity reporting requirements. But what they need to do, I would suggest, is that there should be more of a partnership between the private industry and the government. So when private industry, they can participate in trainings to help these newly obligated entities, for example, the lawyers, the notaries, all these people within the last 8 months, they now fall under this law to report suspicious transactions. Why not get the knowledge base that's already in existence in the private sector from the banks, from the national bank, and transfer that knowledge of how to write these reports and what to look for. What are the red flags? The National Bank has been doing this for years. Private banks have been doing this for years. Use those people to train others on how to red flag suspicious transactions and then what to do next.
That's very nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Maybe I took a few more minutes, but everything you said, it was really interesting. Thank you, Mr. Cabravalo.
Sorry. I should say my colleague, Vesna, you should meet her. She's sitting in the front row here. She has taken another very practical step that I think more people should take, which is, and I don't work for the Certified Fraud Examiner program, I have nothing to do with them, but I think that is a really practical way to have expertise in-house at government agencies. I know Vesna studied very hard. I saw her. You studied on your free time, on the weekends, and it's a very hard course of study, I know that. But with that kind of license and that kind of expertise embedded at government agencies, you're going to have a lot more people who are trained to look for red flags and know what to do when they see them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just, please do speak with my colleague Vesna because she's an expert in this area.
Thank you.
Obzirom da se udelima i akcijama kompanije može trgovati ne samo na berzi, već se udeli mogu kupovati ovako u privatnim transakcijama, veoma je važno i od suštinske važnosti da svaki potencijalni investitor zna tačno kakvo je finansijsko stanje u toj kompaniji s kojom planira da posluje. Tako da dosta od ovih mehanizama koji su malo pre spomenuti već postoje kod nas, a naročito se odnose na uspostavljanje sistema efikasnog upravljanja, to je korporativnog upravljanja u kompanijama, sistema u kome je neophodno da postoji organ.
Postoji u našim zakonima ili postoji u dobrovoljnoj praksi?
Ne, u zakonu, naravno. Postoji u nizu zakona obaveza nadzora ne samo organa u kompaniji kao što je Komisija za reviziju, već imate situaciju da, na primjer, određeni zakoni pružaju i podsticaj kompanijama da prijavljuju prevarne radnje i da učestvuju u detekciji, to jest u prevenciji. Mi smo do sada imali situaciju da je ne samo naš pravni sistem, nego i generalno naša pravna tradicija nije baš bila i nije išla u tom pravcu da je moguće da se vrše neke privatne istrage ili neke istrage koje se sprovode od strane ipak nekih entiteta koji nisu državni organ. Međutim, ovim zakonom, a i ne samo ovim, imate i niz drugih zakona koji na implicitan način sugerišu da je moguće da se vrši neka vrsta nezvanične istrage, međutim neka vrsta unutrašnjeg proveravanja, detekcije, kako bi kompanija mogla da prijavi takvu nezakonitost i kasnije ostvari, ako mogu da nazovem, određenu povoljnost u nekom potencijalnom sudskom postupku. Možda bi mogao da povučem paralelu na zakon koji kolega nije stigao da spomene zbog, pretpostavljam, nedostatka vremena, to je FCPA i na koji način je tamo uređeno, a neke od ovih odredbi su veoma slične tome, dakle da vi kompaniji dajete konkretno tužilaštvo može da da određeni podsticaj kompaniji da prijavi, da uspostavi adekvatne mehanizme kako do takvih nezakonitosti ne bi došlo.
Mi na našem tržištu danas imamo veliki broj revizorskih kuća, imamo sve međunarodne kompanije iz ove oblasti koje su prisutne u Srbiji, kao i veliki broj isto stranih kompanija koje su deo, odnosno domaćih stvari kompanija koje su deo međunarodnih mreža. Uvedene su neke novine koje do sada nisu postojale, znači prvi put je uveden sistem kontrole kvaliteta rada društava za reviziju, uveden je odbor za javni nadzor kao neki ekvivalent PCAOB-a u Sjedinim državama. Kontrolu kvaliteta danas radi komora, radi kao profesionalna organizacija, imamo sektor koji se isključivo tome posvećen, on radi u saradnji sa Ministarstvom finansija. Naravno, mi se bavimo pravnim licima koji su obveznici revizije, tako da je naše polje rada ograničeno, ali nadamo se da ćemo i dalje da nastavimo da radimo u tom pravcu i da ćemo ostvarivati još više rezultata. Ono što želimo da postignemo jeste da učinimo Srbiju vrlo jednom neinteresantnom zemljom za bilo koga ko želi da se bavi pranjem novca.
Samo da dopunim, u Ministarstvu finansija kao drugostepenom organu za prvostepena poreska i carinska pitanja ne odlučuje se samo po poreskim prekršajima, već i po poreskim krivičnim delima. Znači, radi se i o poslovima, o velikim prevarama, velikim utajama koja imaju karakteristike i odlike krivičnih dela. Inače, kada govorimo o samoj prevenciji i detekciji, Ministarstvo finansija ima u vidu i jedno i drugo. Znači, ne odvaja ni jedno ni drugo, vodi računa i o prevenciji za nečinjenje ovih dela, u smislu informisanja, blagovremenog informisanja i edukacije privrednih subjekata kako bi onaj segment poreskih obveznika, znači privrednih subjekata koji eventualno bi učinio neku prevarnu radnju, iz neznanja i neinformisanosti praktično bio relaksiran od toga i ne bi potpao pod kontrolu i pod sankcije koje proizilaze iz učinjenog dela. Ovo napominjem iz tog razloga što sama prevencija, ukoliko je efikasna, pomaže direktno otkrivanju krivičnih dela, jer relaksira poresku administraciju i carinske organe od trošenja vremena i materijalnih sredstava kod onih privrednih subjekata koji postupaju u skladu sa propisima. I obrnuto, detektovanje prevarnih radnji direktno se može iskoristiti u preventivne svrhe, znači pravovremenim informisanjem privrednih subjekata o tome šta se dešava u slučaju kada takve radnje budu otkrivene.
Gde se ogromne finansijske transakcije vrše u kešu, pa čak i kupovina ogromnih vrsta nepokretnosti, ogromne količina, kad kažem, prostranstava državne i zadružne zemlje u Vojvodini i vi zapravo na taj način takav novac uvodite u legalne tokove, a to su zapravo sve operacije pranja novca. Ono što je bitno za našeg zakonodavca jeste i naravno za kolege i koleginice koje dolaze iz bankarskog sektora, jer i oni i direktno i indirektno mogu biti ugroženi ovakvim operacijama, jeste da pre svega mi u nauci zajedno sa onim koji su duboko u praksi dođemo do tih modela, aktuelnih modela, na koji način se vrše takve operacije, da bi analizom takvih modela mogli da se suprotstavimo, da bi zapravo analizom tih modela mogli da donesemo i adekvatne zakone. Ono što je takođe jako bitno, a mislim da je kolega Vasić to i pomenuo, a iako nije, evo da još jednom ponovimo, jer obojica dolazimo iz profesorske struke, to je ta edukacija koja treba da širi svest o prevenciji, edukacija onih koji treba da se suprotstave takvim operacijama, a edukacija koja će zapravo voditi ne samo ka teorijskom shvatanju određenih pojmova, nego koje će ukazivati na konkretne pojavne oblike kako bi naše institucije i ljudi koji rade o njima mogli da zaštite državu Republiku Srbiju.
Treba jačati prosto mehanizme i utvrđivanje osnivanja firmi, praćenja njihovih poslovanja, jer svi smo povezani i svi možemo u tom lancu negde da budemo i oštećeni ukoliko nemamo prave informacije. S druge strane, prevare nisu nešto što se dešava samo u Srbiji, one se dešavaju i u drugim zemljama. Mi smo takođe razgovarali i naveli smo primere, ali pored toga što, kažem, postoje, naveli smo i primere dobre prakse koji su primjenjeni i ovde umeđu vremenu i u nekim drugim zemljama, a dobre prakse u smislu saradnje finansijskog sektora i državnih organa.
Ono što bih ja rekao, mimo onoga što su moje kolege rekli u vezi sa propisima koji su ovde doneti, jeste da je poljoprivreda jedna specifična delatnost koja se razlikuje od drugih delatnosti po tome što se odvija na poljoprivrednom zemljištu, što se odvija pod otvorenim nebom, što uključuje biološke organizme u svoj proces proizvodnje, što utiče na neke cikluse. U poljoprivredi proizvodni ciklusi se ne poklapaju sa periodom izveštavanja vrlo često, pa na kraju godine imate vrlo često velike količine zaliha, posebno nedovršene proizvodnje, koja se može na različitim načinima i pristupima vrednovati različito. To sve može one koji su korisnici finansijskih izveštaja, moji prethodnici koji su do sada govorili, dovesti u zabludu u pogledu odobravanja sredstava, ali i poreske organe u pogledu iskazivanja poreskih obaveza i sl. Druga vrlo važna stvar koju želim da skrenem pažnju, a koja može biti mogućnost za neku vrstu zloupotrebe, jeste činjenica da se poljoprivredom, pored pravnih lica, u Srbiji bave i fizička lica. Prema našem zakonu o poljoprivrednim gazdinstvima u Srbiji ima registrovano 335.000 poljoprivrednih gazdinstava, mimo ovih pravnih lica. Veći deo poljoprivrednih površina obrađuju naša fizička lica koja su registrovana kao takva gazdinstva, a koja nisu vrlo često u obavezi da vode bilo kakve poslovne ili knjigovodstvene evidencije. Takođe, jedan deo poljoprivrednih površina se pretvara u građevinsko zemljište. Svedoci smo toga da se kroz širenje naših gradova, urbanih i industrijskih centara, praktično jedan deo poljoprivrednih površina pretvara u građevinsko zemljište gde se dešavaju praktično kroz samo te transakcije enormni rasti vrednosti poljoprivrednih površina, što takođe otvara prostor da se kroz unošenjem takvih vrsta poljoprivrednih zemljišta u različite oblike privrednih društava i trgovinu ili transakciju udelima, najčešće, ne akcijama, to ne budu vrlo često transparentni prometi, praktično obezbeđuju ogromne razlike u vrednostima koje praktično vrlo često mogu ukazivati na postojanje nekih od krivičnih dela, posebno pranja novca.
Postoji jedna zanimljiva stvar. Mislim, jedna zanimljiva izreka čestitih Albanaca, koja kaže, tamo gde se krade, tamo bogatstva nema. I druga stvar, jedan od verovatno sinonima najbogatijih ljudi na svetu, kakav je bio Aristotel Onazis, je imao običaj da kaže, oni koji kažu da može, da se sa novcem može sve priuštiti, verujte mi, citiram Aristotela Onazisa, ti nikada novca nisu imali. Dakle, ovo je velika stvar koju danas prisustuje. Velika je zahvalnost, naravno, njihovim predstavnicima vlade, odnosno predstavnicima ambasade Austrije i Sjemičke državama, a posebno Srpskoj sekciji Međunarodne policijske asocijacije, gospodin Panteliću, gospođici Zlatić, gospodin Pejoviću, da šta, to su mladi ljudi. To su mladi ljudi i ti mladi ljudi će nešto uraditi od ove zemlje. Ukazali su mi na 4 elementa. Prvi i ključni, dakle, dobri ljudi, visoko obrazovani i elementarno pošteni i časni, koji se nalaze na vodećim funkcijama u poslovnim i političkim javnim delatnostima.